Okay, we are recording. It is time with Tom.
Hey,
Time with Tom. Um, yeah, and we've been talking for like a half hour, so now I have to figure out where to pick up
about
from
Kermit the Frog
about Kermit the Frog and the state of the world. Um,
and the state of Maryland,
and the state of the state of Maryland and protests and all
which
kinds
I'm
of
trying to
things.
think if I must have been to at some point. Like when you drive to Florida, no, I don't go through Maryland.
You came down here for our con
Right. Yeah, that
when
was,
we did the con. Yeah, you came down when we did Dialogue Con. You came down. And we're in Baltimore and saw we're kind of in the heart of it. You were in like
and
the
I'm working on I'm editing a novel right now that takes place in Baltimore in
oh, very
1913,
cool.
so that's cool.
Yeah, that's
At
very
the
cool.
coal yards,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I know where those are.
Lithuanian immigrants.
Yeah. Oh, you told me about that novel.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and I know where those are. That's fun. Um, all of my books are set in Baltimore because I'm terrible at setting. And so I literally have to be sitting in the location that I'm writing.
I I use I use Google Maps, which I know is not the same, but it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, it is incredible.
The
It's an amazing tool.
I um I find that if you just to jump right into craft here, but
Hmm.
you can use Google Maps for a specificity that really helps me with action scenes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a specific place in mind, your action scenes are boring because they're like punch, kick, punch, kick. But if
Yeah.
you're like, oh, there's a bridge there that they can, fall off into the river on, or
Hmm.
there's a light, I mean, Google Maps, I'm like literally
Yeah.
like, there's a light pole there.
Yeah. There's a park
So
bench he can jump
yeah,
over. Yeah.
and I find that really helps you give it some distinction and specificity.
Yeah, I'm really bad at imagining settings, so I do have to be in a place to get a feel for it. So like there's a scene in my second novel, The 12 Commandments. I had to write a scene where like my two homeless superheroes had a patrol route through the city, and I literally had to walk it. And
Yeah.
I describe the route. I don't give you agonizing detail of all 15 miles of the route, but I do describe the route, and you can literally walk this exact steps that they walk. They walk,
Yeah.
and there's like, they'll stop, they'll be talking, and there's like a fence that Jose is playing with at one point. It's because I was playing with that fence when I was walking around. And so it's a, but I can't do it any other way. Yeah,
You know who does that is Dan Brown, who
really,
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, people give him a hard time
that's shocking.
for prose and stuff, but like if they have a motor scooter chase across Rome, he knows exactly how long it takes. Like
Fascinating. Yeah, that's what
yeah.
I walked it because I was like, I wonder how many hours this would take a day. Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, All right, so let's get to our standard time with Tom questions. What are you working on?
Uh I personally am writing the same novel I've been writing for a year, which is embarrassing, but
It's not embarrassing, man.
I got some good I got some after stalling a lot, I got some good progress um in the first half of March, and then I realized I actually had to get work done. So, um, but yeah. So who knows?
Nice.
Once I so as fans and followers of the show know, Jeff, I've started a new job as a freelance editor.
That's right. You
Uh,
sold the bookstore.
and I sold the bookstore. Well, I mean, I sold the books. I didn't sell the bookstore,
Yeah.
uh,
You closed the bookstore. You
but
sold the books and
yes. And
closed the bookstore.
so that took longer than I thought. So I have a backlog of editing work. But once I actually catch up on that, which hopefully will be in about 2 weeks, there's time in each scheduled day for like an hour or two of my own writing or my own marketing or my own whatever. I've got a little sidetracked on marketing with doing translations, which is fun. But yeah, so it's same novel. I really like it. It's different. It's not part of my series, and I think I query it just for fun. Uh,
Is this the family of con people?
no, no, this is the tropical thriller
Okay. Okay.
about a husband and wife who are on a vacation, and it goes wrong in a Lara Croft
Yeah.
lost kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah. This one sounds fun.
So
You told me about this
having
one.
a good time with it.
Yeah.
And it's got, two POVs with strong character arcs. So
Nice. And how is life post bookstore?
God, it's awesome. it feels like it's been 6 months. It's been 4 weeks, and it feels like it's been uh, 6 months. Today I took my kid to school, and then I got home and I filled my little Prius with shrubbery that I had trimmed and took it to the recycling center. And then I came home and I got cleaned up and I did some work. And then when I got tired of being in one spot, I took my morning walk and finished that at a coffee shop where I did another hour of work. And then I walked home and got distracted watching things, on the internet that I shouldn't have. But yeah, I mean, I need to do 5 or 6 hours of billable work a day to
Mm.
replace my salary, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah,
But I've got plenty now, and the only hindrance now is me actually doing it. So,
that's fantastic.
but yeah, it feels like retirement, even though I'm working. Uh,
That's what to say, even though
it,
you're working a full-time job.
yeah, it's fine. I just, I got to work on posture and other, all those sort of things, when you're in a chair or in a
Yeah, I
doing,
totally
because
understand.
I had a sort of natural, I had a natural 4 or 5 thousand steps a day working at the bookstore. Um, that if I'm not purposely doing it now, it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So, so yeah, it's awesome.
nice. Yeah, well, that's really great, man. I'm super excited for your new life. I think that's really cool. Um, yeah. What am I working on? I'm working on, I don't know. I go through these phases. I go through weeks. My phases tend to last a week, but I'll have weeks where I'm like hyper productive and super excited about what I'm working on. And then I'll like have conversations with people or I'll hear conversations with people that just make me like bring the self-doubt monster back. And then I get
Yeah,
kind of lost in what I'm doing and it gets very hard to motivate. So I had a lot of conversations last week about marketing, which were great. They're good conversations and about selling, not just books, but screenplays. And, I just find them so demotivating.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
in the support group last week, which people are free to join,
yeah,
the
you can
support
join the
group.
Dialogue Doctor support group at
I was
patreon.com
like, I was
backslash
like,
Jeff
all this
Elkins.
marketing stuff's great, but let's talk about craft.
Yeah, yeah, y'all were funny. I was laughing because y'all were like, "Hey, Jeff, why did you schedule this stuff? Y'all picked these topics.
I
I didn't
didn't
pick these
pick
topics.
that topic. I
Y'all
want to talk
voted on
craft.
these.
I always want to talk craft. All the other stuff's
I
incidental.
don't want to talk marketing. I hate marketing.
Yeah, but well, and we're not going to talk about world affairs, but it is distracting. And plus, you tend to do deep dives too. Where you're like, I spent the last week watching every movie by the Coen
I
brothers, or I
do.
spent
I
the
do
last
very
week
deep
doing,
dives.
which I
Yeah.
always admire,
I'm
because
doing Steven Spielberg right now, along with a podcast that I listen to. I listen to Blank Check with Griffin and David, and he's a fascinating story. He's a really interesting study in theme because it's fascinating. He made a movie called The Fablemans. I act like nobody's ever heard of it. He made a really famous movie a couple years ago called The Fablemans about his life as a child.
yes, yeah, I didn't see it.
And I haven't seen it yet either because it's not on my list yet to see. I'm watching them in order. And it's interesting though to hear people who love cinema and love his work as I kind of study each film that he's done, talk about how now that they understand his childhood, how prevalent the themes of his childhood are in every movie. You
Probably
know,
true for a lot of directors.
childlike men that struggle with family commitment. Um, a child's perspective from a
Mhm.
camera, right? Like just
Yeah.
an
Well, I was going to
interesting,
say the thing you say theme, but the thing I think of when I think of Spielberg is camera
yeah,
placement and movement.
and so much like he's got this like beautiful storytelling, amazing storytelling, very efficient storytelling, like shockingly efficient. The amount that he gets done in a story is crazy. But then, just these like underlying things that kind of live in his stories about men that fail their families, men that never have families, men that can't grow
Mhm.
up. It's just a fascinating, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah, but so I am doing that. But I've been writing screenplay. I think I've talked about that. I've
Yeah. Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
talked about this so much. I've been tried writing screenplays, and then I had a conversation this week that was a lovely conversation with wonderful people about how hard it is to sell screenplays. And this is such a weird thing. I don't intend to sell a screenplay. I'm not like looking for a career in screenplay writing. I'm not, I'm really just doing it because it was fun and because it's like this is a way to kind of reignite some passion after a year of writing a memoir that didn't go anywhere. Like this is just kind of a fun project. But hearing other people talk about their kind of struggles to achieve financial aspirations can really just drag you down.
Yeah.
So like, I think there's a there I and I'm talking about this intentionally because I think a lot of people experience this where they're just writing the novel of their heart. Yeah, they're like, if I make copies, it's great. If I don't, I don't. And then they go listen to a podcast with somebody like me on there being like, well, you got to market this way and you got to do this and you got to, and then it doesn't just discourage your wanting to finish the book. It actually discourages you're like, well, why do I even go write the next page? Like it's a tough, even if you never, and I feel that anyway, even if I never intended to sell a ton of books, it becomes discouraging and they're like, why would I even write the next page? And part of it is there's other people's definitions of success. And I find I have weeks like this where I let other people's definitions of success discourage my work.
Yeah. Although
And
I'll
I need
tell
to not
you,
do that, but I don't know how.
yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
but I've worked with over 200 authors, and 90% of them say, "Oh, it's just the project of my heart." And then 6 months later, they're like, "How do we get this book to sell?" Because
Yeah.
it is, and I don't know if that's coming from outside influences of podcasts and stuff. I think it is our sort of fabled idea of what it means to be an author, and that means like being in bookstores. That means being successful.
Yeah. And
I
I think
think,
that's it. I think you're constantly looking for, have I achieved it when you're doing art? And I'm finally at a place, 10 years into doing this, I'm finally at a place where I'm like, I don't need financial success. Now that I fully understand what brings financial success, now that I understand how to get it, I actually don't want to pursue it with art. And so part of me is like, because it wouldn't be fun for me, because I know who I am as a writer, and that would not be fun. Writing to market would destroy my soul. Some people do it great and they love it. I could not. So I think though, after we finish a book, we're constantly asking, like, did I do it? Did I do the thing?
yeah,
And if you're
it's
not
interesting.
selling, you're like, I don't know if I did it or not. Yeah.
We're looking at colleges, and my kid's great at visual arts, all of them.
Yeah.
Take your pick; they can do all of them. And uh, but they are very wisely hesitant about pursuing that because they don't want to ruin it
Hmm.
by having it be, their job. Uh, so unfortunately, they don't have any other idea of what they want to do. So, which is why they should go to
Yeah.
small liberal arts college. Which,
Yep. Go try everything. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know what the balance is. I don't have any sage wisdom. I'm just expressing that, like, man, this week I'm really down, and I'm not down because I'm unhappy with the work I'm doing. I'm down because I let some things kind of get in my craw, and I like it just makes everything tough. So I have to like spend a week exercising them, like demons. And
I think I think we've talked about this before, but and I don't think I have the competition gene, but I have the strategic gene. And so like I see people making ads work and I'm like, I want to figure out how to make ads work. And it frustrates me that I can't because you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
and because yes, I want to make money, but also like there is a there's something that can be figured out because people are
yeah.
figuring it
Hmm. Yeah, I think, and I think part of my problem with ads is like I see them, I understand them, I know how they work. I get the like kind of trial and error gambling side to them. And I am, well, when I've done them, I've been pretty good at them. But I've just, we live on a really tight budget. I have two kids in college. I don't have the war chest to play with them. So like, I've just realized that like, that's not going to be part of my direction. You know, like that's not going to be part of what I do. So it's a anyway, but now that I've brought everybody down to
Yeah.
my nonsense,
Let's
wah, wah.
let's talk about Spielberg before we move on. Uh,
Yeah,
because the thing that fascinates me is that I never thought of him that much, except like Raiders is great, and that that kind of thing. But um, directors I really liked kept uh, pointing to him, especially Jaws. And I was like, really, Jaws? Like Steven Soderbergh, who I love, is like, yeah, Jaws. And you know what it was? I had never seen it letterbox before.
interesting.
Because I grew up seeing it like on VHS on a TV in our living room, right? Uh, crunched into a square. If you watch that thing in widescreen, like you got an hour of three people on a boat and like every possible photographic composition you can think of.
Yeah,
It's just incredible.
it's insane.
Uh, and then you watch E.T. You was talking about children, you probably figured this out, but in E.T., the camera never
Yeah,
really goes higher than a kid's point of
yep,
view, which is fascinating.
brilliant. Yeah. And he does interesting things in storytelling, like when he was making E.T. famously, he didn't let the kids ever see the puppeteers
Mhm.
because he wanted them to believe that E.T. was, and it kind of worked on Drew Barrymore. At one point, there's a story about a, very young Drew Barrymore pulling him aside and saying like, "Hey, don't tell anybody, but there's people in the room over there." In that room over there.
She was like five.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was like, I discovered these people in this room over there. Don't tell anybody.
Have you ever seen Super 8?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
the idea that you can have a style that is so distinctive that somebody can make an homage to your style
Yeah.
and you can look at it and be like, wow, this is a Spielberg film. I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of
It's
means you're doing
crazy.
something right, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like studying artists who have like perfected their craft in some way, who are like, this is what I know what I do. This is what I do, and I'm good at it. And I like not just looking at their successes, but their failures. Like I watched this week. Oh, what's the name of the stupid movie I watched? It's a terrible one that he did with Richard Dreyfuss and Holly Hunter, and it's awful. It's
Oh,
about
yeah,
um I'm sorry, I'm looking up the name. It's about a it's called Always.
yeah.
It's about a firefighter pilot who fights fires in Oregon, Richard Dreyfuss, who's dating Holly Hunter, and then he dies. And then he comes back as a spirit, and he's supposed to mentor this other firefighter as a ghost. And the other firefighter ends up falling in love with Holly Hunter. But the problem is the character growth arcs are all off. The growth arcs are terrible. And the characterization is really bad. Richard Dreyfuss never really figures out who the character is. He ends up just whining the whole movie. And Holly Hunter, who's an amazing actress, ends up like trying to play this kind of like girly girl, which is a
Yeah.
weird role for her. And it's a weird, like, this doesn't work. So anyway, he doesn't always hit a home run.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the one before that was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which is you know, I would say an amazing movie. And then
Yeah.
the one after that is Hook, which is also an incredible movie. So, he's got a bad one in there every once in a while. But
Right.
anyway, yeah. Yeah, but just looking at his storytelling, I think is inspiring and like, helps to understand like, oh, a lot of times when I get to a broken one, it's like, well, how would I fix it? Like, how would you make it work? And have X person star in X role is not
How
an
would I make
acceptable
Steven
answer.
Spielberg better? Says
Well,
Jay.
just this one that is clearly bad. There's no fixing Indiana Jones. That's perfect. Um, yeah, but anyway, yeah. Okay, best story you've consumed lately.
Actually, I'm going to combine this and the next one.
Oh, and a broken
Best
story.
and
Okay.
broken. Yeah, because
Best and
they can
broken.
be the same. They can be the same.
It can be.
So I have two actually that are sort of uh, that were really good, but are also causing me a lot of thought.
Hmm.
One is A Man on the Inside with Ted Danson, the TV show. Have you seen
Okay.
it?
I've never watched it.
It's 9 episodes. It's by Michael Schur, who did The Good Place
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and did Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and it's charming. It's like the Ted Danson show. Like it's just
Nice.
watching him be great. And the woman who plays his daughter at one point describes the character as a podcast in a suit, which is, or actually one of the nurses describes it that way, and his daughter's like, "Yeah, that's about right."
Yeah.
Uh,
So I immediately have an image of that
yeah.
character. Yeah.
So he's a San Francisco retired engineering professor whose wife has died, and he hasn't really moved on, and so he's looking for a hobby, and he ends up applying for this job as a undercover investigator for a private detective who is investigating a theft in a retirement home.
Hmm.
Uh, and uh, and he gets the job because he's the only applicant who knows how to use a cell phone. Uh,
It's really funny.
but it's just Ted Danson being delightful. But what's interesting is like Michael Shore is known for. I mean, my family's watched The Good Place through three times completely through.
Hmm.
It's like in my mind, the pinnacle of great
Yeah,
television.
yeah.
But it's also incredibly dense joke telling, and so is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like it's like
Yeah.
how many jokes can we push into every single
Yeah. And how
line?
long can we take this? How many punchlines can we have to one joke?
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is not that at all. And so
Interesting.
it's got all the sort of philosophical themes and thoughts of his other things, but it's the pace is much slower. And it
Oh,
actually bothered me in some places because I was like, I thought this was a mystery, but the mystery is the least important part, which is
interesting.
fine.
Yeah.
But, I sort of came to it looking for a mystery, which is partly about my expectations, which is interesting because I set myself up for that because more and more I try to not read about things before I read or watch them because I hate reading blurbs and then like it ruins half of the book because it tells you everything in it. But then sometimes you just end up sort of jarring because it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend Man on the Inside. It's got some great stuff in it, and it's well worth. And it's fun watching, like, to remember that actors act
Yeah.
because, like, Stephanie Beatrice plays, so she plays Rosa on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah. Yeah.
She plays the director of the retirement home, and she's a totally different character,
That's
totally
fascinating.
different.
I
And
love that.
then Ted Danson's son-in-law, uh, it was just a bit part, but he's played by the guy who plays Donkey Doug in The Good Place, who is like Jason's best friend, who turns out to actually also be his father. Have you not?
Mm.
Have you watched The Good Place?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I know exactly. I know
So yeah,
exactly what you're talking
Donkey
about.
Doug.
Yeah.
It's just fun to watch. Be like, oh yeah, acting, right? Because
Yeah.
because Ted
Yeah.
Danson's kind of playing a similar character to
Yeah.
what he
He's kind
played
of
in
always Sam from Cheers. It's
uh,
just an older version.
the
Yeah.
but yeah, so definitely recommend it, but it's different and it didn't always work for me.
Hmm. Interesting.
And then I also just finished Death of the Author, the book by Nanette Okafor.
Yeah.
So she wrote Akata Witch and Akata Warrior, which
Hmm.
are a young adult or middle grade series and Nigerian fantasy
Hmm.
kind of thing. And it was really really astute character study. It was not an epic fantasy or science fiction book,
Interesting.
and I picked it up prepared, ready for that.
Yeah.
And
Is
then
it
it
like
does.
drama? Like what is it?
Um, it's like science fiction written by Michael Cunningham,
Okay.
right? Which he actually did. If you ever read Specimen Days, which is one of my
I
favorites,
haven't.
but um, and she does this thing where it's about a Nigerian American woman who ends up writing this insanely popular book and how that affects her life. And she is physically disabled and how um, and so much of it is her relationship with her family. which is sort of,
Interesting.
she's got like four brothers and sisters, and they all have different opinions, and her parents, um, and then she intersperses the story that the woman has written. So it's
Yeah.
got which is a sci-fi novel. So it's got this, this post-apocalyptic robot story mixed in with this Nigerian American family
Mm,
story, and was not the plot that I wanted when I started. Although it is
interesting.
objectively very well written, great
Yeah.
characters, great, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
character growth, but I'm like, man, I don't want any more like family arguments. Like
Yeah.
there's other books for that. You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I want a so that's interesting. But
Nice.
so those are two things that like I would recommend them because they were quality, but they also bothered me in some way, which is a
Yeah. Yeah.
weird feeling.
That's interesting.
What do you
Yeah.
got for something good that you watched?
Well, I'm reading a book you recommended actually, A Drink Before the
Uh-oh.
War by
Oh
Dennis
yeah.
Lehane. It's great. It's kind of the nonsense I need right now. Does that make sense? Like it's just a
But it's
hard-boiled
not.
detective.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
but
more. It's because
it
it's
is.
Boston, and Boston is so freaking
It's
complicated.
Boston and it's politics and it's social class and it's
But it's also that great hard-boiled humor. I mean, when I
yeah,
was looking at rebranding, that was part of it. I was like, I've been sort of branding as humor, but like all these, you know, Robert
yeah.
Crace and Dennis, they all have humor in them,
It's dark and like kind of gritty and cynical and I'm just really enjoying it. It's a
but
good
also
read.
so funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's just good.
But there
Um,
is oh my gosh, I don't know how far along you are, but there's a scene that I always remember where he suddenly has a moment of racism and he's like shocked by
yep.
himself.
Yep, I have
Uh,
passed that scene.
and
Yeah,
it's just really well done. I mean,
it's
it's just,
very well
I
done. It's
love when
very
you're reading,
self-aware. Yeah.
I felt this way with, there's a series by Joseph Hansen, and I'm totally going to blank out on the name of the first, but he wrote like 12 books. They were written in the uh, late 70s, and the main character was a detective in California who was gay, and like the books were
Mm,
totally went out of print because
yeah.
it wasn't the right time. But it was another one of those series where like it is a police procedural or it is a detective novel, but there's points where it just like elevates, and you're like, whoa, I didn't expect to get that
Yeah.
feeling from this, and I felt like that in the middle of that book.
Yeah.
Um, but man, so have you seen the movie Gone Baby Gone?
I have. That's why I'm reading it because you told me
Yeah.
like Gone Baby Gone is better if you've read all the books before.
Oh my freaking.
And I
Oh
was like,
yeah.
okay, so let's do that. So
Yeah.
this is book one and I'm loving it. It's great.
So book one is great and a little bit like traditional detective. Book two is dark
Really? Okay. I'm
and
here for
really
that.
binds the characters together. And then book three is sort of like, okay, I went a little too dark. Let's go a little
Let's
lighter.
pull it back.
And then Gone Baby Gone is like, nope, nope, we're sticking with
Oh
it.
man. Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm really excited about reading the series. And yeah, I'm almost done with book one and it's good.
Yeah, the last
Um,
couple are just like, yeah, all right, but Gone Baby Gone is just like
yeah.
great. I'm glad you're reading those. They're really good.
Yeah, the other story that really worked for me is I watched The Residence on Netflix.
Oh, good. I was
It's
trying to
a
get the kids to watch that today, and
yeah, it's a new
there's four.
Shondaland one.
Yeah, there's four people in our house. We can't agree on anything to watch.
It's good. It's fun. It's just dumb fun. I did notice something like craft-wise that was interesting in it, and I was talking to some friends that are screenwriters about it briefly. It does this, it's very Glass Onion, like very Knives Out style, not written by Ryan Johnson, but very in that style. And there's an interesting thing that happens though where they keep recalling moments of they keep flashing back, but not flashing back like a lot of times those stories will flash back in a way that like gives you new perspective.
Mhm.
Not in that way. They're literally just flashing back to remind you of what happened. And I was confused by it because when I watch something, I binge it. So I just watch them all in a
Right.
row. I was like, why do they keep going back to this? And but then I watched my wife watch it, and she watches TV while she does a puzzle. And she usually, if it has an intricate plot, she usually can't watch it. And this one she was all into. And I'm like, this is why. It's a new style of writing, I
Mhm.
think, for people that watch TV and do other things at the same
Or
time.
when TV used to be on once a week, you
Yeah.
needed the callbacks,
Yeah. It's a fast, but it's not on what's it's a streaming show. It
right?
comes and
Yeah.
they dropped all the episodes at one time. Yeah. So anyway, it was just a fascinating, like it was an interesting writing. I feel like Shonda Rhimes is like or reorienting streaming for audiences like my wife who are like half paying attention. That's what it felt like. It felt like a glass onion for somebody who's half paying attention. But it's a lot of fun. The characters are amazing. Character arcs are great. Dialogue's fantastic, like they always are in her shows.
Yeah, it was
Story
good.
that's broken is this is gonna make people mad. Um, I read the memoir Careless People. You read that? It's about
No,
Facebook.
it's about, yeah.
It is broken. Um,
The memoir is broken, or
the memoir's broken. Facebook
yeah.
is a disaster, and if you're reading it, like I feel like most people who are going to read that book are like watching a train wreck. It's like I know this is a train wreck. I feel in my gut this is a train wreck, and now I'm going to watch a train wreck, and it does. It is a train wreck, and it does live up to that. The problem, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about why did I not enjoy this story? And I think I've my take is that there's no character growth in it. She begins telling the story from the perspective of somebody who dislikes everyone there and is very judgmental of them. She dislikes everyone there and is very judgmental of them the entire time.
Mhm.
And she never stops disliking everyone there and being very judgmental of them. And so the emotional journey of the memoir is flat. And
But she's not a reporter,
she's not, yeah,
so
if
it's
she
not
were
like it's
reporting
not
the news, it'd be different,
right.
but she's telling her personal journey. It's a memoir. And she's like, it has perspective and it has opinion and it's very opinionated actually. Um, Lots of her opinions I don't necessarily agree with, which isn't a problem for me. I read memoirs all the time that I don't agree with. But it's not told reporter style. It's told in this very personal memoir style. And there's some really great moments. Like there's a kind of devastating chapter about a very difficult uh childbirth she had that really put her in danger of death. And the way it's written is really it's beautiful writing. Like you really do feel her struggle of having a ventilator in her mouth and not being able to figure out where her baby is. Like it's really intense, but there's no growth in it. And it's something that we talk about with story all the time with craft that like, hey, the story you're telling is the emotional journey of the character. And if it's a memoir, it's the emotional journey of the person who's living the story. And the setting for the story is Facebook. The setting for the emotional journey are these people that you're talking about. And this definitely confuses what people are reading for. It's like, oh, I can just give you these horrible story after horrible story and you'll enjoy it. It's like, no, you've got to have a growth arc here. I need to know who you were when you first came, and I need to know what you're like, where the change points were, and how you changed when you left. Like it would just be a much better book. But it's written from the perspective of I always knew this to be true, and it's just
Then
like,
then why'd you
well,
stay there?
that's the question you end
Right.
up asking the whole time is like, if you knew there were horrible people from the beginning, why did you empower them with all this global? Because she is kind of a sweet C-suite level executive that's in charge of their global connections. And it's like, I'd rather hear the story of, hey, I came in wide-eyed and optimistic. And
Yeah,
then,
which is
yeah,
like one of the documentaries I recommend to everybody is the social dilemma,
yeah,
and it's interviews with people who were inventors and originators at these companies, and they're like, not only did I leave, but like my kids don't even touch a phone,
yeah,
right? Like, you know what I mean? Like they all had a moment They
Yeah.
all had a crisis moment, and that
Yeah.
makes them, more believable. And this thing, or I tell people when I work on their memoirs, like, what's the most important moment?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, it doesn't have to be exactly like a novel, but it has to have a most important moment. It
Yeah.
has to have a climax that you build to.
Well, every story has to be a story of change. If it's not a story of change, what are we doing? Right? Like, you know, yeah, anyway. That's mine that's broken. Um, and it makes me sad because I think it's an important topic that needs that, like a whistleblower from that whistleblowers from that zone are really important right now. And it bummed me out that this one had so much potential and then I felt like didn't actually fulfill in a way that's going to make people want to read it and want to like live in it. All right. Fun questions or challenges you faced as an editor.
Everybody I'm working for right now overwrites, and it's weird because I underwrite,
Yeah,
and it's like I can take 30% out of this book if you let me.
that's really funny.
Um, yeah. Um, and running into something I found a lot with local clients, there must be a lot of writing teachers on the Seacoast or something, because when I first started helping people publish their books, I was like, all right, people have a great idea, they just want to know how to tell it, etc. And instead, people bring me these incredibly polished prose and nothing happens. And so I'm having that problem a bit, where a book is 130,000 words, and I'm
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm getting close to 30% here, and I still don't know what the major conflict of the book is gonna
yeah,
be. You're still telling me about their daily life.
yeah,
Um, you know, um, and then I'm grappling a bit with, I have some clients who just like take everything I say as like, yes, absolutely, which I don't necessarily want, but that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
And then I have one who I've worked with before and working with again, and he's just like pushing back on everything. And part of me is like, why did you hire me? And the other part is like, oh, I get why you hired me, because
hmm
I think they're fighting with themselves. Or as I told him, like, you don't trust yourself and you don't trust your reader because you're giving us too much information,
yeah,
just like so much backstory. Um, and but then he'll point to like a great book and be like, this is nothing but backstory. I'm like, you're right. You're right. Like, there's always an exception, right? But
yeah,
like, but I mean, but you're not Salman Rushdie.
yeah.
Uh,
That's what I was about to say, but you're not
but
Toni Morrison, so you
I
don't get to
know,
do that.
but
Yeah.
why not? So, and then I'm always ultimately confronted with like, why do I get invested? Like, if they want it, if they want all that stuff in there, we just why not let them have it in there? But I really feel like they want to write a successful book and not necessarily sales successful, but
hmm
like they
Yeah,
want other people to think it's a good book. So uh,
yeah,
I feel like it's my job to be like, you're going to lose people here
yeah,
on paragraph 9 of the description of whatever it is.
yeah. I find myself telling clients a lot, like, hey, it's not wrong. It's not right or it's not wrong, but this is where people stop reading. So like if you like it, you can keep it, but it's not, it doesn't help the book. And I tell them like I put stuff in my books all the time that I just find fun that I know this shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But I'm having a good time. Like, I'll have a whole conversation about a cheeseburger. It's like, what does this have to do with the plot of the story or the growth arcs or anything? Nothing. I was just having a good time talking about a cheeseburger. Like,
I know, I mean, I'm not obsessive compulsive. Um,
yeah,
I'm just not. And yet, like, clearly people pay less attention than I do to things like consistency of capitalization or that sort of thing. And I'm reading, I'm like, you, you did it here, but you didn't do it here, and then
Yeah.
you did it here, but you didn't do it here, and like, come on,
Yeah.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
Well, that's always been my beef about italics. You get to use them for one thing, people.
Yeah.
You get one thing. You don't get to use them for 10 things.
Um,
Yeah. It's really
yeah,
funny.
this not, and I don't want to talk out of school about people, but another thing that I find fascinating, you see this in major published books too, is like keeping catchphrases and stuff in the original language, which then you have to italicize, which is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But it's like, why are they saying that word?
In the
It's
original
because
language.
you want to
Yeah.
keep reminding me that they're from a different country.
Yeah.
But let's be perfectly honest, they're in their home by themselves. Aren't they probably talking in that language?
Yeah. Like if we're gonna do it, let's do
Right?
it.
I mean, it's
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
but and then like, okay, if you're going to use this word from another language, and I actually have this in several different books in the last week that I've been working on, like if you're going to have this word in this language, if you use that word a ton, then actually maybe we should think about not italicizing it because
Yeah.
then that becomes distracting. So I was working on this one that's, in Texas, and
Mm.
um, there's a lot of crossover with Spanish, and um, these like soldiers were called pantoleros or something like that, and it's like it's fine once or twice, but like by the time you italicize it for the 50th time,
Yeah.
it's like maybe we just shouldn't.
It's lost the effect. Yeah.
As long
It's
as I don't really care as long as it's consistent.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and I find myself, people are paying me for it, so fine. But like, you could have solved this inconsistency problem
Well, and that is one of those
before
weird
you
problems.
gave it to me.
Yeah, it is one of those weird problems of like, is this right or wrong? I don't know. How do you want it to feel? Right? Like,
Right? No, but a lot of them are just wrong.
well, yeah, okay,
Right?
yeah, that's
Like
fair.
it's
Like
like Main
miscapitalization is
Street.
just wrong. But
Right.
like, I'm
Right.
talking about like italicizing Pantalenos. Like,
Right.
is it right or wrong? I don't know. Like, yeah, I know I don't like it.
What I tend to do is I italicize it if they're using a word that we have an equivalent for in English, but they're choosing to use the Spanish word.
Mm, yeah, that works.
So, but who knows?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
my
that's
big pet
funny.
peeve is hi mom. Mom is capitalized, but that's my mom. Mom is not capitalized, and people just don't get that.
Yeah, yeah,
Now we're
that's
getting in the
funny.
weeds, getting in
Yeah,
the
no,
editing
that's
weeds,
okay.
but
That's
that
what
would
we're
make
good
me
at. We're getting
crazy.
in the weeds around craft. This is
Yeah.
where you and I can get in the weeds about and not get in trouble. Yeah.
And I'm sure there are plenty of editors who, when I say I don't care as long as it's consistent, like they're just like, no, it's got to be Chicago or it's got to be ALA, right? It's got to
Yeah.
be,
It doesn't.
no, it probably should. It probably
It
should. But
doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't have to be. Right?
no.
Like this is my pet peeve as an editor.
But this is what
There's
people are paying you for. They
yeah,
want it
there
to be
should
correct.
or there has to be. And I find myself over and over telling my clients, there is no has to be. You can do whatever you want. You can write the entire book in italics, Cormac McCarthy on the road, if you want to. You can do that. There's no what do you like? Like what,
Right.
there's just the like burden to the reader.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you think this is an acceptable burden to the reader because of what it creates in the story, then I'm fine with it. My job as an editor is to tell you, hey, this is a burden to the reader. Like what you're doing right here makes it hard to read your book. Yeah. I've done several books recently and several sessions recently where the problem, well, okay, I'm having two problems. One is a personal problem, and then the other one is not a personal problem. The one that's not a personal problem is I've read several books recently where all of the scenes are great. There's just too many of them. And the people I'm working with are talking to agents, and agents are like, this has to be under 90,000 words. And it's like 120,000.
Oh, this should be my new specialty. Like I
Yeah,
should just
I
be
will
the
delete,
cutter. I'll be the
I will
axer.
cut. Yeah. And so, I'm reading their books and I'm like, whew, how do I cut this? All of these scenes are good. If you just have four of them. And then it's like, which one do we choose to keep is always the hard question. Um, but yeah, that's an interesting problem I'm facing. And I'm not good at it. I'm bad at it. Because I'm like, oh, I like this scene too.
You know what might help with that? Because
Huh.
that's I've got this going with several different authors right now. One, just like they're in great detail describing the daily lives of these people. And it's interesting and it's fascinating,
Yeah.
but it's too much.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that one's just kind of, trimming. But this other one that's just really sprawling. I mean, he's at 130,000 words. It needs to be 90,000 words. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a new outline
Yeah.
and then decide on what has to happen. And that will dictate which scenes you keep or which scenes get combined or rewritten or whatever. So you're not just keeping a scene because you like it,
Yeah.
keeping a scene because it's the one that matches the outline.
Yeah. That's good. Um, my other problem, my personal problem is I coach a lot of people that have been in the community for 4 years now, that have been in the Dialogue Doctor community for 4 years now. They've read the books I've written. They've listened to all 200 and, 80 episodes of the podcast. They have had sessions with me. They've talked to me, and I don't, I don't, I find that I don't really teach a lot of the basics anymore. I'm like, in the weeds with them on like, well, let's craft the emotional journey to what you want it to be. And like, so we're like doing, pretty artistic work. And what's funny is I do the podcast often, like what's happening in the podcast is often based on like what I'm working on in the community. Like if I'm teaching something, if I'm working on something, it's like, oh, this is what I'm seeing in the community. Because I'm doing all this like hyper artistic, high level work in the community, I haven't taught the basics in a long time. So like somebody came on the website this week. I have a little thing on the website where you can literally just ding my phone and talk to me on the phone. And somebody came on the website and was like, explain a character wheel. And I was like, oh, man, I haven't done a character wheel. And I was like, that's all I used to do with
Mhm.
people was character wheels.
Right.
But like I haven't, so I went to the podcast and I was like, oh, let me go grab an episode for you to watch to look at where I explain a character wheel. I had to go all the way back to episode 46. I haven't done a character wheel for somebody on like publicly taught how to do a character wheel, but I would say like that's actually kind of our bread and butter. Like that's what we're really great at in the Dialogue Doctor. So part of me is like, man, I have to figure out how to get back to teaching basics again, just because everybody in the community that I'm working with has moved along from where they are. Like, they
But
all know
don't you
how to
see
make
that? You
character
see that when
wheels.
you do public speaking, though. Like when you go and talk at a conference, those people don't.
That's what
You're
I'm saying though,
so
is
you're sort
I'm
of
really
backing up.
bad at it because I show up to talk at a conference and I'm like, hey, here's the stuff that I'm working on right now with people. And it's like level 201 stuff. And I'm finding that like, oh, I'm talking to these people about like using voice modulation to like change the emotional tone of a scene without explaining what a character voice is. And I'm like, crap, I need to get better at like teaching the basics a little bit. But anyway, yeah, it is, I am honored because it's like, oh, we've built a successful community where people are really growing and changing, but I need to be a better teacher. Like, it's just a weird,
Or you need to funnel more people in.
well, yeah, I need to work with more new people. So if you're a
But
new
then you
person,
have to operate on several tiers. So
I'm okay doing that. I just need to like, yeah, it was actually really, I'm going to record another podcast episode probably here in a week where I actually build a character wheel again. Be like, hey, let's talk about how to do this again.
it's funny you say that because this book that I'm still working on for like a year and a half, uh, at one point, I can't remember whether I did something with you or I did something with Laura at one point, and I had the totally cross-tab spreadsheet
Yeah.
for And she was like, I haven't seen this in a long
Yeah,
time.
it's funny because we like move on to
And
other
I had to go
stuff.
dig it up. I had to go dig it up, and I'm
Yeah,
like, I know that there was a sheet somewhere for this because I wanted to work on their voices before I started, which was new for me because I had
yeah,
been basically writing the same characters for 6 books. You don't really need a character wheel when you're
yeah,
using the same characters over
yeah,
and over again. So I was like,
yeah,
okay, I have 2 characters. I want them to both have growth arcs that affect each other and
yeah,
all that sort of stuff. And it's great. It still works.
yeah,
It's great for it. Uh, but yeah, you guys were
yeah.
like, what is this?
It's so
Where did this
funny.
come from?
No. Um, okay, you ready for the last two questions?
Yes.
Okay. My question for you is, what's your white whale? What's your like, this is the thing that plagues me that someday I want to do.
Um, this is this is not where you thought I was going to go with this, but
I
I
didn't know
really
where you were
want
going to go with that. That's
I
why I
really want to
ask.
have
I'm
I
super
really want to
fascinated.
have no debt.
Oh, no, that's not where I thought you were going to go at
Yeah.
all. Okay.
And
Nice.
you know, um, yeah, it's I'm almost 55 freaking years old and I've had a job for 25 years, which has been lovely, but has made me zero money.
Yeah.
But we live a perfectly good middle class life. I just don't like worrying about things falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so some good security would be nice.
Okay.
And there's a lot of different ways to build that.
Yeah.
I would love to build that by writing books.
Yeah.
But if it turns out that it's something else, that's fine too. But I'm certainly going to give it a try, which is also part of why I'm continually focused on the puzzle, the strategic puzzle of there are people out there making money with their books.
Absolutely.
And how do I make that?
Yeah. How do I become one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, not a
Sex
very
helps.
exciting way of life.
Writing sex helps.
Yeah, does it? Does it still sell?
It does still sell.
It surprises me because there's so much of it for free out there. But
I was talking to two friends recently whose wives are making them read the Rebecca Yarros novels because the wives believe it's going to make them better at sex.
do dragons have opposable thumbs?
I don't know. I haven't read the books. Anyway.
I told
Uh,
you one of my coworkers like took the bullet and read it because we were selling so much of it.
yeah.
And she is like a poet and a social activist and like last person, who should be probably reading this book. And I'm like, so? And she's like, I have to tell you, I never really thought about dragons much before this, but I fucking love dragons.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I'm not
but
judging. I'm being
but well,
honest.
but what she no, it's
People like
interesting
reading sex.
because you read like the um secret sauce book or whatever it was called, the butter um the book about tropes, like
The
seven
Anatomy of
figure
Genre.
author. No, no, no. This was like this is a woman who writes romance. It was like the 7 figure,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
like
I can't remember
better
what it's
with butter,
called.
something
Yeah,
like that. Um, but what Rachel said about reading this book is that like it's got every trope that you can think of crushed into it, which
yeah, that,
sometimes doesn't work, but sometimes works great.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
like
It's
no dissonant at all. It's like
yeah. And
giving
I'm
people
again, I'm not judging. It's like
yeah.
great feel good writing. It's like just give me everything I want in a book. Yeah. Anyway,
But yeah, so I mean, did you think I was going to say write a Pulitzer or something? Because I wouldn't
I
mind,
did.
but
I
you
did
know,
thought you were going to say that.
I'm so
Yeah.
pedestrian.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I
World
think it's
peace, man.
world. That's right. I want to fix the universe. Yeah,
Want America to get its head out of its ass.
that's a big goal.
Yeah.
Um, that's a white whale. Uh, yeah. All right. Anything else we want to talk about?
Well, Tom brings a question for Jeff, which
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was
uh
hoping to skip that.
yeah, no, it's maybe, but um it kind of ties into what we were just talking about before about uh, sort of the community growing and such. And it's like you're getting close to 5 years on this.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it?
Or what do you want it to be that it's not? Or
I mean, as always, um, for those listening, as Becca Syme once told me, I am the most context person, strengths person she's ever spoken to. It's my number three, but seems to scream very loudly. I look back on the last 5 years, and there's things that I'm like, man, we've done that really, really well, and I'm very happy and like proud of it. And there's things that's like, I wish I would have done that I didn't do. And so I do have a lot of like, I wish I would have done that. Like, I wish I would have written, there's been opportunities to write more books about dialogue, and I was so self-conscious about it that I didn't. Now that I see how well the one that I wrote has been accepted, I'm like, oh, I need to do those. So I'm doing them now. It's not like I'm not doing them. Um, I think most of all, I love how the community has helped people. That's my favorite part of it. And that's what keeps me coming back to it all the time. Is like this helps people. That's probably why I would do it for free if I had to, is that like I love that it helps people. I love I have that like I was saying, I have that dumb thing on the website where you can literally just talk to me at any time. And I have a little bit of delight every time somebody pings it. And I know for a lot of people, it would drive them crazy. It would be like, I don't want to be accessible
yeah.
24/7, but I'll literally be like, asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning and it pings and I get kind of happy that like, oh, I'm going to get to help somebody. And sometimes they're just like, where can I find this thing? And I'm like, well, you literally just need to click the menu button that says the podcast, and then they're all listed there. But I don't even mind. I'll go look. I'll be like, oh, here's the link. Like, it's just that. But I really like that the community helps people. I enjoy it for that reason. I like solving problems for people. Like I like people, and I realize that's what I'm actually good at over the last 4 years. Like this is a weird. Now I'm just rambling, but I realize that what I'm good at over the last 4 years is I'm not the greatest writer in the world. Right? Like I'm not Toni Morrison. I never will be. I'm not Hemingway. I'm not Cormac McCarthy, and I never will be. And I've come to a place where I'm like, no, I actually kind of respect what I write. It's a little childish at times, and it's fun. And if I'm not laughing, I'm not having a good time, right? Like so, I understand what I write, and I'm never going to win a Pulitzer. And if I do, somebody should probably take it away. So like, there's like I understand what I bring to the table. But what I am really good at is strategically solving problems. That's what I'm really good, and that's where the dialogue doctor has come from, is people bringing problems. And it's been like, okay, like when I say us, I mean Laura and JP and I being like, okay, this is a problem people are having. Let's research, let's learn, let's figure out what it looks like. Let's see what other people have done. Let's ask about it in new ways. And then let's approach it. Let's build a system or a tool or something that makes that easier to understand, to do, to see. That's what I'm good at. And part of me says that because like I never intended to be a writer and I definitely never intended to be a writing coach. Like this is something that I started in my late 30s. So part of me is like I am good at this in all areas of my life. I'm good at strategically solving problems. That's just part of how I'm built. Um, and it's really nice to apply that in an area where it helps people. And that's what I like about the community. That's where
Yeah.
my reflection on the community after 4.5 years. Yeah.
I feel like that explains the sort of you tend to have a battle against mission creep
Oh, all the
because
time.
people in the community are like, yeah, but what about Facebook ads? And it's hard to be like not try to solve that problem. You know
If
what I
somebody
mean?
really wants help with something, it's
Uh,
hard for me to be like, I'm not going to work on that.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Uh,
will openly say
and
though, I'm terrible at this.
yeah, but I also think you've gone through something in the last year where, which I think is sort of a little nearsighted in that you have been in so many communities where it's become all about marketing that it's made you really kind of feel like nobody cares about craft. Whereas
Yeah.
most of my clients are still in the real world. Like I'm
Yeah.
starting to have more clients like from the sort of communities that we're in, but for the last 10 years, my clients have been like the guy who lives, two towns over and heard about me and has written his book, and they're interested in craft
Yeah.
because
It's
they're trying to finish
interesting.
their book.
Yeah. Getting
And
into the local community, I found a lot more of that.
yeah, and I feel like there was a point where you were like, we're teaching craft and nobody wants it. But I think it's all the more reason to stick to it because people will want it eventually.
Yeah. And I'm not going anywhere. I think it's, something I've learned, I think with all of these endeavors, with writing in general, but definitely with like building something like the Dialogue Doctor, it demands a massive amount of self-reflection. And I think the big gift of the Dialogue Doctor to me is it's been very healing. When I started 4 years ago, was suffering with a massive amount of self-doubt and a massive amount of like just the general worthlessness. And so being able to help other people has really helped me sort of see value in what I do and what I bring. A lot of times when you hear me like complain about the market, complain about the world, it is that like old voice of mine creeping back up. It's a like I'm not seeing any value in what I offer. Often it comes from me being directly rejected by something. And like where most people were rejected and they're like, well, that person's an a-hole. They don't know anything. I'm like, well, I'm an a-hole and I don't know anything. That's my natural knee-jerk response. So and it's been a wild 4 years, man. Like personally, I've put two kids in college. I'm about to have a third one graduate high school. We've had like some pretty like chronic diseases. I've lost two parents during the Dialogue Doctor. Like there's been a lot that like a lot of life has happened. So I think sometimes I need people like you, Tom, to be like, hey, cut it out. Because I get a little dark spirally. Does that make sense? It doesn't help that I came before my like original chosen profession was religion, and I was kind of thrown out of the profession, which I literally was, by I'm not being hyperbolic, by because I wanted to change things and see it differently. Not because I was like, oh, I'm a huge innovator, but because I was like, no, no, it'll help more people if we do it this way. And they didn't want that. So like the coming out of a bubble that was in and watching that bubble kind of collapse, like economic bubble collapse, part of me sees that same bubble at times in the writing world, and it triggers all those bad memories and emotions. And so all that to say, I think a lot of times my like dark bent on marketing and the community and the writing world is really just my internal issues flaring out and me having to like get a hold of them. But yeah, if that
Well,
makes any sense.
yeah, no, I'm glad it's there because I basically have one person in real life that I talk with about writing, and everything else is mostly this group. It used to be a couple other groups, but you know they disappear and they change. But um, it's really great to have because I want to talk about crime. I mean, I love all the other
Yeah,
stuff too. I
I
love all
love
the
it.
other stuff too, but you can get it all over the place, and it changes constantly and whatever. But
Yeah, I love that we have a community where people are like, no, no, I'd want to be a better writer.
yeah,
I love that. And it's not that I'm like, oh, I'm Robert McKee and let me give you the golden wisdom of writing. It is, I do carry that spirit into it of like, hey, we'll figure this out together.
mhm.
Like, we'll figure it out. Like I feel like part of what is great about the community that everybody has kind of built into it is that Colin Powell optimism is a force multiplier. And it's very rare for somebody in the Dialogue Doctor community besides me to say can't, right? Like it's very rare. It's always like, we'll figure this out. We'll learn this. Yeah.
Yeah. Although, oh look,
You went fuzzy,
I went
dude.
fuzzy. Cool. Uh, yeah. Although I always cringe a little every time you say that writing's a team sport because I'm like, no,
It is a team sport.
commiserating about writing is a team sport.
That's part of it. Commiserating about writing is a necessary component to being a writer.
Conversing about craft is a team sport.
Yeah, you need a group of people helping you group think. I can't, and I historically, besides Emily Dickinson, who died in, sadness and misery, having never shared her. Right, I don't know that that's true. Besides that one outlier, I can't think of a writer who didn't have a community of writers around. I don't know of one. Right, like, and I think that's just
Yeah, although you hear stories about like, you know, William uh Wallace Stevens like working at midnight shift at a train yard and writing every night or whatever.
yeah, but he's talking to people about it, right? Like it's not he's not like, yeah, Stephen King, and on writing goes to his shed and gets high and like, writes on cocaine in his early career. But let's not forget that his wife is an editor and that he's constantly talking to her about what he's
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's always a community there, some hiding somewhere. Yeah. Um, there's always a group of we don't do this. You don't make art alone. That's not how art works. It's not how it works. Yeah. Oh. All right, man. I think we did it. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to talk about?
No, no,
Okay,
that
tell
was
people where
great.
they can find your services.
Uh, authorhelp.net.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
I have my first coaching client, which is what you do all the time.
Ooh, nice. I'm excited.
But but usually I'm meeting people when they've already written their 140,000 words. Uh, and it's kind
Yeah.
of it's it'll be interesting to the process is interesting because there's all these things I'm trying to put in place as they get going
Yeah.
to avoid a lot of pitfalls.
Set them up for success.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. Nice, man. Um, all right, I'll hit stop and we can
Okay.
uh we can chat a little bit more.